Welcome back. This is Ilana with
Jason.
This is Ex Post Watch Show. And today we are on movie 2 of our Halloween spooky series, The Lost Boys.
Yeah.
Jason, have you seen The Lost Boys?
I haven't. This has been like one of those things that I've been meaning to see, I guess, for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, never saw it. I know of it from just people like having seen it, I guess, and it being a bit of a cult classic. I mostly know of it from Reservoir Dogs because there's this big scene where Tim Roth is like giving the speech about being the guy who sells pot. He's an undercover cop. And at some point he mentions like, people are calling me and I'm just trying to watch The Lost Boys. So that's about as much as I know about this movie.
Right. I mean, you've had 33 years, but you just didn't get on it. Yeah. So this movie was released in 1987. I don't know if it was an immediate hit, but it's definitely a cult classic. So many 80s, recognizable 80s faces. Jason Patric, Corey Haim, Kiefer Sutherland, Diane Wiest, Jamie Gertz, Corey Feldman. So all those peeps are in this. It's been a really long time since I have seen this, probably 20 years, to be honest. Maybe not quite that long, but it's been a long time. And I guess my nerd thing is I like movies, but I'm not like a true nerd kind of dork geeky person. But I do love vampire movies and vampire stories. So I really like this movie when I saw it. It's like this family moves to, I want to say California. I feel like everything's in California just because they shoot everything in California.
Santa Cruz, California.
There you go. Okay, so they move to California and there's 2 boys, I think. And then they go to like this amusement park and he gets kind of fixated on this girl. And then he meets her boyfriend and his sort of ragtag team. I don't think that encapsulated the sort of danger that surrounds these guys. So I think he's like, something's off with these guys. And then he meets these other 2, which I think are Corey Haim and Corey Feldman, who are like, we're vampire hunters. Oh. And there's drama. It's a little sexy. It's like very 80s. The soundtrack has In Excess on it, so you know it's good.
Nice.
I know we're both fans. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this. It was kind of freaky when I saw it the first time. I wasn't like scared, but I remember thinking it was scarier than I expected. I thought it was going to be cheesier when I saw it the first time. So I'm really curious to see if I still think it's cheesy, or if I do think it's cheesy now, because I didn't then. Yeah. I thought it was going to be cheesy. It wasn't as cheesy as I thought. I'm curious to gauge the cheese factor on this watching, because the 80s just seems cheesy now. Anything you watch from the 80s is kind of like, oh, really? Like that's what these guys thought was cool, but I think I'm gonna like it still. Do you know much about this movie? Yeah, I know it's about vampires. I assume they're kind of like teenage vampires. Yeah.
That's about it. I know Kiefer Sutherland's in it. I like him a lot. So yeah. I'm definitely, I hope he's like prominent in it.
Yeah, he is for sure. With his hair, he's got a lot of hair happening.
Oh yeah.
Everyone's got a lot of hair happening in this. So at very least, the soundtrack's great and the hair is big.
I think I'll definitely get, like, regardless of the quality of this movie, if it's great or total crap, I think I'll just get a good blast of 80s deliciousness from it. From the music and all that.
I think that's a good way to describe it. A blast of 80s deliciousness.
Right in your face. That was the poster at the time, which made no sense in the context. Yeah, I don't know. It's something that I've been, I guess, meaning to watch for a while. I say I guess because I just knew I haven't seen it, but I also just never bothered to. But I also I remember in like the 2000s hearing about Corey Feldman as a guy, and he was kind of like in culture as like just a person, I guess, like talking about he had some rough experiences when he was younger and stuff like that. And people were like, this was an 80s star. an 80s kid star, and I just somehow missed any of those people.
Yeah.
And I think like this movie might be my Rosetta Stone into understanding that part of 80s pop culture that I just didn't get until now.
Yeah. Yeah, he made a lot of waves in the early 2000s or whatever it was.
And he was like in a bunch of stuff in the 80s, right?
Yeah, well, I think he was a child star.
Oh, he was in Stand By Me. Okay, so I have seen him in at least something. Well, that'll be fun to see all these 80s kids being vampires and stuff.
And vampire hunters?
Is this going to be like Twilight? Like, do you think Twilight ripped this stuff off?
No, this is much cooler than Twilight. Like, I think, okay, I don't 100% know because I was 3 in 1987, but I think this was like a fun movie for like anybody to go see. Like Twilight was specifically for like horny housewives and like teenage girls, right? Whereas I think this is
men can enjoy this too.
Yeah. I think so, though. I think it's kind of a cooler version. Like everybody that I know that likes kind of fun 80s cool vampires, not really.
I'm a cool vampire.
I'm like, yeah, if you like cool vampire stuff, you definitely like this movie. I don't think it's like Twilight at all. I think there's this undercurrent of danger that surrounds the story, I think. So it's actually, I think the stakes are a little higher. I think it's a bit more interesting. It's like rock and roll vampires.
Oh, sweet. Okay. Fucking, I am sold.
I don't know. I'm like just describing what I recall, but I was also, maybe in my early 20s, maybe when I watched this. So last. So this could just be a real piece of corny shit. But I mean, it'll be fun. I know it'll be fun at the very least.
Sweet. Well, I think I'm going to enjoy this just in some capacity. So I'm pretty optimistic.
Yeah, it'll be good. All right. Let's go watch it, and then we'll come back and talk about the corn factor and all the hair.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, welcome back. We have just watched The Lost Boys. Jason, you said you had not seen this movie, or you didn't remember seeing this movie, correct?
Yeah, I definitely had never seen it before.
So what are your first thoughts after viewing it?
I went into this movie with pretty high expectations, and when I was watching it initially, I kind of was a bit disappointed about 2/3 through. Like, something about it wasn't working for me, but after finishing it and thinking about it for like a day or so, I actually really come to like it a lot. I think it's interesting because it is, you can see where it fits into the pantheon of like 80s classics that have gone on to inspire countless remakes at this point. But it also brings something with it thematically that I liked a lot. So it was good. The music's great too. That definitely helps. All the songs have been stuck in my head.
Yeah, I knew you'd like the music. And there's so much music.
Is there really, though? Because there's one song that is the theme song to the movie that plays, I don't know, constantly. 17 times.
Yeah. That was a bit much. There was a point, like probably about the 2/3 of the way through mark that you were talking about, where I was like, again? Really?
It took me a while to realize it was the same song. Once I kind of picked up on the like kids singing part, I was like, oh, this is the same song, and they just keep playing it.
So dramatic.
Although I've gone on to listen to that song probably 15 times since watching the movie, so I gotta say, it's a pretty good song.
It's great. I think the soundtrack, again, another great soundtrack, I think. So I think... it was a long time since I've seen this movie, and I really enjoyed it when I saw it. I think my biggest takeaway, like the thing that stuck out to me the most, was honestly the hair in this movie, which I knew was going to be really exciting for me, and it definitely did not disappoint.
Yeah, there was some great hair going on. Kiefer Sutherland's whole look, but particularly the hair is fantastic. What's his name? Jason Patric? Is he the main guy? Yeah, he's got just massive. I mean, he's Jim Morrison from The Doors. They like kind of beat you over the head with that of like, hey, this guy looks like Jim Morrison. But yeah, he's looking good.
He is looking good. Yes, he's kind of. Let's just get into it. Let's just go with the main character, really, I guess, is Michael. Michael and his younger brother Sam and their mom moved to Santa Clara?
I think so.
Santa Clara, which is not a real place, which it seemingly is mostly just an amusement park.
Yeah, there's not a lot of locations there. There's an amusement park, there is the house, there's another person's house, and then there's caves. Caves
that were formerly...
like the town or something.
Resorts.
Yeah.
Which, sure. I was like, okay, sure, I'll go with this. Who cares? Not important. So they moved to the town. They kind of beat you over the head with the fact that this is a very strange place. It's a little bit unnerving. It's very much like Hall of Mirrors, kind of. Everything's a little off, a little unnerving.
But is it really? Like, I think
I think so.
They try and, I mean, definitely it is as the movie goes on and you just see how many missing children there are. But at the beginning, when they're kind of setting it up, they're, like you see some graffiti that's like murder capital of the U.S. And then they very subtly play People Are Strange by The Doors. And then just show you a lot of shots of people. And what I thought was kind of funny about that is it's like, look at all these people on a sunny day in the 80s and they've all got like punk haircuts and stuff like that. Like it's almost kind of like, wow, look at how strange these people are. But what didn't occur to me until I watched it today, like a second time, was the first time I saw that I didn't realize any of those people were supposed to look strange. Like it actually looked very normal fashion wise by today's standards. And then I was like, this is supposed to be weird.
Well, I don't know. The 80s had that very preppy, clean cut thing going on. And I also feel like there was this rebellious sort of, I guess as generations sort of tend to do after their parents, like they reference it a few times how a lot of their parents were hippies. Like even the grandpa is kind of like a hippie and the parents of the Frog Brothers, they're hippies. I feel kind of bummed out that they didn't explore that more. I mean, it's only an hour and a half film, but I feel like this was sort of like a response. Like a lot of the stuff that happened in the 80s was a response to that cultural wave that happened in the 60s and 70s. So I feel like maybe to us it seems very tame, but perhaps for the time it was like...
Yeah, certainly in the context of when it was made, that was like a cultural, I don't know, change, I guess, that was happening. I think your point about it being... So what I really took away from this movie was that this is like... It's an 80s movie, not just in aesthetic and, like movie design, I guess, but it is 80s in terms of culture because... it really is an after-school special about sex and drugs and falling in with the wrong crowd. This movie, I was surprised to find out, was rated R because it really does feel like an after-school special at times. Just the sort of like the vibe of it and stuff like that. And a big part of it is like that was the era of the war on drugs. Like this is the Reagan era. Like this really does fit in with that. And I didn't actually make the connection to the hippie parents, but that was the culture at the time. Was you did have like the boomers were having kids, and becomes Gen X, and they're crazy, the goddamn kids
with their leather jackets,
getting
their motorcycles,
getting one ear pierced.
I think one of my favorite touches of the film was like, I'm jumping way ahead, obviously, but when Michael, like Jason Patric's character, after he hangs out with the vampire gang the first time, and then all of a sudden he's got his ear pierced, and I actually was like, wait, did I look down at my phone too long? Did I miss something? And I went back, and I was like, oh no, they're just like, he's like a cool kid now. He's got his ear pierced.
Yeah, they show him earlier on, before he gets vampired, like he's walking around and he sees like some girls getting their ears pierced, and he's like looking at it like, whoa, like you get your ear pierced. I think it's right after he bought the leather jacket.
Yeah, it was, and right before he officially meets Star.
Yeah.
So, okay, so to go back a little bit, so the two brothers who I loved their relationship, and also with the mom, and Diane Weiss, oh my God. Diane Weiss? Anyway,
W.
Diane W. She's, as I was saying, is the best mom. I mean, literally in this movie, they're like, that's the whole point. The boys need a mother. So great casting job there. Because of course they would choose her. So she's this sweetheart mom. We don't know what happened with the dad. It sounds like she's just like, fuck this guy. We're just going to start fresh with her father, who's this very eccentric, a horny old guy, I guess.
Everybody in this movie is horny, except for the kids. They're the only ones who are getting things done. But there's a lesson there.
So yeah, they move in with Grandpa. The boys go to the amusement park where there's an outdoor concert. Which
this is when the movie really kicks off. If you weren't sold yet.
Yeah. And so Michael sees Jamie Gertz, who's Star.
Hold on. We'll
go back.
Okay.
We'll go back because I feel like we could do a full podcast series about what we're about to talk about. Jamie Gertz, and he's like, instantly it becomes completely enamored with her, as happens. It just happens, you know.
They show a shot of her dancing, and then they they cut back to him, and he's just got like the dumbest look on his face. He's just like staring at her.
Yeah, she had great hair though. Again, the hair.
She looked good.
She's beautiful. I really like Jamie Gertz. So she is. She's just chilling on her own. He's obsessed with her. He starts following her. Like it's okay. Like if because it's a hot guy, I guess it's okay to stalk someone you think is beautiful.
They were making eyes at each other. I think he was in the right to follow up on that.
It was a little weird though. He was like full on anyway. As he's following her for what seems to be quite a while, he actually tells his brother, "Don't you have anything better to do than follow me around all night?" Which I thought was funny.
His brother's like, what did he say? "I'm at the victim of your hormones, or at the mercy of your hormones."
Yeah. So then he meets Star, and then we meet. Well, I guess I jumped. We meet the vampires early on.
Yeah, we see the vampires at the beginning. We get this opening scene where like Kiefer Sutherland and Bill from Bill and Ted. Or is it Ted? I don't know
Alex
the difference.
Winter?
Yeah. I know the difference between the guys, but I don't know which character is which. Their gang of vampires is at the amusement park, and he's like, Kiefer's hitting on some guy's girlfriend and getting in a bit of a fight with them. And like, it really is kind of it is like kids these days. But they are like, you could easily picture them as being like the kids from Grease or something like that. If they were bigger dicks, I guess.
Wait. Oh, if the kids from Grease were bigger dicks.
Yeah, maybe Grease is a bad example. I'm just thinking like...
No, they are. They're kind of like the badass.
Like, yeah,
kind of
a bit of a biker gang.
Outsiders.
Not like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The boys from the wrong side of the tracks kind of vibes.
Yeah. It's definitely accurate in certain ways.
So, yeah, we see them kill the amusement park security guy, which at first they made it seem like the vampire gang was afraid of him, and I was like, what? I don't remember this.
They did not seem afraid of him at all.
At first? Well, they backed off pretty quickly.
Yeah, I guess, but they
were like, oh, I'll eat you later.
Yeah, exactly. They knew who had the power there.
Yeah. And then we see him, those overhead shots, which I love. Those point of view shots like of them flying, those really freaked me out when I was a kid. But I think they're great. They're kind of cheesy, but I really like them.
I think they were.
They're fun.
I think they were wise too, as opposed to like CGIing in some flying vampires. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can kind of convey a lot more just with that camera work, and it definitely will hold up a lot better.
I actually read that they had like a fairly tight budget, and that's why they didn't get shots of them actually flying, which I think actually worked. Like you just said, like I think it worked in their favor.
Yeah, it's the Jaws thing. Hide the monster.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
budgetary reasons, and it turns out better.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, back to before Michael meets the vampires. We're at the amusement park, and the place he sees Star, his love interest, is at an outdoor concert with maybe the most fascinating, captivating performance in this film.
Yes. So good.
I did not remember this at all. This was not even something that registered for me the first time I saw this, and I cannot
You're
believe
like, this
myself.
is normal.
Yeah. Tim Capello, sometimes credited as Timmy.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Those were in your notes, so.
Okay, no, I had to scroll through.
Yeah. Playing a saxophone with no shirt. He's just this jacked, like 80s jacked, like giant with the most interesting outfit on, playing the saxophone like he invented the saxophone.
And singing, belting out lines.
I don't, like, I feel, I have, like, several lines of notes about this, and I feel speechless still just thinking about it. I will never stop thinking about this guy as long as I live.
So when I saw this, I was like, oh, okay, they've got this professional wrestler guy to like, I'd never heard the song before. I didn't know if it was written for the movie or something. I thought they had cast some guy to, like, you know, he's the singer in the band, in quotes, you know, just for the sake of this concert scene in this movie. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's this incredibly muscular guy, and he's playing saxophone and hamming it up, and then he's singing. And I'm like, yeah, this is clearly not the guy who made this song. And then I looked it up, and I was like, holy shit, that's a real guy. That's what he does. This is great.
Yeah, he like trained at the New England Conservatory of Music. He played with Peter Gabriel, Carly Simon, and toured with Tina Turner for 15 years. Also, do you remember how cool the saxophone was in the 1980s?
Yeah, there was a window.
I wanted so badly to play the saxophone, and then I got to middle school and we went to band class, and I didn't have the lung capacity, so I got downgraded to the clarinet.
Oh, no.
I know. So I was extra uncool. But this is amazing. Also, have you seen the SNL skit that this inspired?
I have not.
I will find it for you. And if people listening have not seen it, you must. It's with John Hamm, Sergio. Just do yourself a favor and find it somehow. I honestly feel like I want to stop this podcast and do a podcast series about Tim Capello and his life story. I want to know so much about this guy.
He's still going. I looked up some videos. He's still out there playing.
Jesus.
He doesn't have quite the like 80s bodybuilder body, but he still looks darn good for his age.
Yeah, he's got to be in his 50s at least. Because I was wondering about the age of some of these actors, especially Jason Patric, because he's like beefy in this. Like he looks like a grown man. He was only 21. Because I was a bit confused about the age of him and Sam, because it sounded like he was still in high school, but he looked like not a high school boy.
I read him as he's meant to be a high school kid. Like that was my interpretation of the character. I don't know. 21 looks about right. That's about where I would peg him. Like he has a kind of grown up looking face, but he didn't look old.
He didn't look old, but I don't know. Maybe he just looked like very. Maybe I was just into it and I didn't like thinking that.
I mean, it was the confidence of like the leather jacket and the earring, and you're like, how old are you?
It did work for me.
It was a good look.
It was a good look. His hair is great. His jawline Come on.
Yeah, this movie definitely, I think, brings something for everyone in terms of like, well, in terms of like sex appeal, but also narrative wise. I can get into that later. But yeah, like if you like guys, you got Jason Patric and Kiefer Sutherland, and if you like the ladies, you got Jenny Gertz. Is that her name? Jamie Gertz. I'm not familiar with her. I don't recognize her from much else.
Yeah. She did. Oh, fuck. There was something she was in that I used to watch, and I can't remember now. She's great though. I really like her. Okay, so we're going to move on from Tim Capello. Is there anything more you'd like to say about Tim Capello, or should I move on?
No, that's about it. I was just pleasantly surprised, and don't judge a book by his cover. Absolutely. He might look like a pro wrestler, and he can shred on the saxophone and sing. And that song is great. I have also listened to that song like half a dozen times.
All right, so after this is when I guess Sam stops at the comic book shop first, and Mom stops at the video store first.
Yeah.
I think. Or around the same time. So Mom goes into the video store where they're renting tapes. And at first I wasn't sure what it was. It looked like some crazy electronics. It looked like they were in Vegas. It was there was a lot happening. Where she meets Max, who owns the store, and they kind of hit it off.
Yeah, and I'm immediately suspicious of that guy as soon as I see him. Just does not exude a good energy. Well, I didn't predict the ending was going to be the ending. Like, it's him. He's the bad guy. But I didn't suspect that. I just didn't like him. Like, he just seems like a skeezy guy.
Interesting. Why did he seem skeezy to you?
I think it's the actor's face.
Oh. So nothing he really did or said.
Yeah, no. I don't know. I think I don't recognize the dude from anything else, but like just my read on him was like, this is an 80s villain character. Like I can tell something with this guy is going to be not good.
He's almost too clean cut. Like he's almost too perfect. I say that with quotation marks. He seems so sweet and so clean cut, and he really takes an interest in Mom like so quickly, and then she gets a job at the shop.
I guess that is what maybe just comes across as bad vibes, and just like, oh, he clearly wants to sleep with her, which is, a normal part of like being an adult and dating, but like maybe because she's the mom character and he's just this guy that you've seen, you're just like, I don't know. I've known Mom for 8 minutes at this point. I don't know you. Yeah. So I try. I'm worried about her.
You kind of took the Sam stance of like, maybe Mom shouldn't be fucking.
Yes, sorry, Mom.
And then Sam goes into the comic book store and meets. I mistakenly thought it was the two Coreys who were the vampire hunters, but it's not. Corey Haim is Sam, and he's so fucking funny in this. I really liked that character. He's got so many good one-liners, and he's such, I think, stereotypical teenage boy, younger brother character. He's great.
Yeah, so this movie, apparently when it was first written, it was supposed to be, everybody was supposed to be a little bit younger. So like the 13 or 14-year-old vampires, while the Frog Brothers were chubby 8-year-old Cub Scouts. And I think, and they kind of like aged everyone up a bit, which I think makes it more interesting, because basically you've got like, so this movie does have something for everyone, I think generation wise, because you've got the sort of Spielbergian kids movie where they're going on an adventure and there's like this great threat, and with the younger kids, and I think that is like executed really well. And then you have the like teenage romance puberty thing going on with Michael. I think that's kind of the theme of his whole story, is just like it's a pretty obvious allegory to like drug addiction, peer pressure, and then with the adults, I think there is a theme there, and I think it's like abusive relationships. I think that's kind of what this ultimately ends up being. You know, early on you find out she's got divorced, and she just had to, like, you know, leave her husband. Like, the dad says something about, like, you actually ended up worse off from the divorce, which is like kind of what happens sometimes when you're running away from a bad relationship. And she meets this guy who seems like nice and stuff like that, but he turns out to be quite sinister and had like this long game of bad intentions and stuff like that. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent, but
no.
But when it comes to the kids, like, I think that part of the movie, like, I think the original movie sounds like it was going to be that the kids part kind of the whole thing, and I think what they did was interesting in that they kind of kept that, and, you know, it's about a third of the movie and they do it really well, but then they also bring in these other themes that are more interesting, in my opinion. Or not more interesting, but also interesting.
Yeah, I mostly agree. I feel like it was a bit much because there were things that they did touch on that they didn't follow through with, really. And they were just little things that I wanted to see more of, like the hippie parents and the generational sort of gap. And there were things like the grandpa's taxidermy that really, why? Sam's
grandpa's a prankster. That's his whole character. Like, every character is a little bit thin, I think, and including the relationships. Like, you're not given a ton really to work with there. So you kind of just have to, like, guess or infer.
Yeah. It's just, it seems like they gave us these little things that I expected would go someplace and they didn't. Like Sam's closet. He was like, you know, close the closet door. So I was expecting some poltergeist activity. There was nothing like that. So there were some moments that I was like, I wonder if this was intended to be more fleshed out, but they didn't have time, or if they just were giving us, like you said, these sort of little nuggets about these characters, because there are so many characters and so many relationships. I think overall it really works, but I just wanted a little bit more of some of those things. And I think that when this movie works best, I really think it's that sort of family dynamic, that sort of heartwarming, but also a little cheesy, but also that sort of action adventure element to it, like with the brothers especially. I think that's the strongest relationship, and I think it's done so well that it really does act like a nice tether for everything else that's happening around it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think when I first watched it and was a bit disappointed, the things that made me feel disappointed are kind of like things you're pointing out, like details like wacky grandpa and I don't know how to explain it, but I didn't really buy any of the characters as, like, this just feels like a very thin, what's like the most basic implementation of these different things we can put out there. But toward the end and afterward, kind of looking at it in a totality, the actual, like, thematic connections of all the characters made it make a lot more sense to me, and then sort of made me reinterpret things differently and appreciate it more.
Yeah, I can see that. And I think it's good filmmaking generally. There are, like, some small moments or build-ups to reveals that I do think work. Like, I won't go into all of them. Just, I think like scenes and chunks and moments in this film really work well and really, like, sucked me in. Like, there was not one point during this film where I was like, I'm bored. Like, I want to, often I'm like, meh, and I want to look at my phone or check my email or whatever partway through a movie. But I didn't have that urge when I was watching this.
Yeah, it moves pretty efficiently.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, he meets Michael. It's so shitty. Well, you and I both know this. It's super shitty being the new kid and super shitty feeling like an outsider in a strange place. And this is as we know, a very, very strange place. They keep telling us that. So Michael's trying hard to fit in. He obviously wants Star to notice him. He gets his leather jacket because he sees her go off with the lost boys, I guess we'll call them, Kiefer and his vamps, and then gets to know her a little bit more. Then they go on this like insane-o bike ride through the sand and almost go off a cliff. And then he's like, these guys are chill. I'll go hang out with them in their cave, I guess.
Yeah, so that all was a bit confusing to me. I was really confused as to what the motivations were certainly for the Lost Boys. I mean, Michael, it kind of made sense because, like, he sees this girl, he likes her, he's trying to get to know her, he's getting close to her and stuff like that. And then she's got a boyfriend. It's Kiefer Sutherland on a motorbike. But and then Kiefer Sutherland starts like kind of like challenging him, but also kind of inviting him in. That's the part that really kind of threw me off. It wasn't just like, hey man, stay away. It was like, come on, keep up if you can. And you're like, what? And then he's sort of like, but then what he's doing is he's like goading him into doing things, like this is where it becomes just a bunch of like after school special peer pressure. Just say no. That Ninja Turtles commercial I remember seeing as a kid where the kids are in the hallway and the one guy offers them a joint, and they're like in grade 3 and he's like, no man, if I'm a chicken, you're a turkey.
I agree with you. I don't really understand why. Like, obviously there's this bit of initiation that's happening, but why they're accepting him into this. Maybe it's because Star likes him. Maybe because he's like, maybe they worship Jim Morrison and he looks like Jim Morrison. So they're like, get in on this action guy.
They've got the poster. Well, I mean, plot wise, we do know why. I think like by the end, you can work backwards and say, it was the dad and the dad must have told the kid. But like, you don't see any of the relationship between like Max and David. Is that Kiefer Sutherland's character's name? I think it's David.
Right. Yes.
You don't really see that. So like, I guess you can just sort of like, okay, it kind of makes sense. But it sort of made it all a little bit confusing because the only thing like Kiefer Sutherland really knows about this guy at this point is that he's hot for his girlfriend. And he's like, that's the criteria to be in our club is you have to want to sleep with my girlfriend.
I mean, maybe like... Maybe it's a poly relationship. Maybe they're all kind of, because also, how did Star get involved in this? Who's Lottie? How is Lottie, like, what is Lottie's relationship to Star? They don't even really hint at any of that. We see Lottie's face on a milk carton. Lottie's missing. But so is Star missing? Do people know? Like, the fuck, who is everybody? Like, why are they all together? They really don't give us anything. We really don't get anything about these other boys. I say boys loosely, like these really young men that are vampires. We don't know anything about them.
Yeah.
Which is a bit more menacing in a certain way because we don't really get those. Even at the end, like you said, there's no real connection that we see between Max and these guys. Like, why is Max their kind of father figure? What happened there? But I guess that's a whole different story. Like, that's a 3-hour epic, HBO special.
That is where it does become like the two ways I see the story playing out or as being like pretty, obvious metaphors are like, one is like drugs and alcohol and addiction and, kids. I just remember growing up seeing a lot of media about this kind of stuff about like, teenagers doing heroin or whatever, and then overdosing and dying. I mean, this stuff still happens today, obviously. And the way that all plays out with the sort of initiation scene and stuff like that, where they're like daring him to kind of like do the next thing. Literally chanting his name as he like chugs the blood.
Oh my God.
By the way,
one of the funniest scenes in the movie, like, I don't know the character's name, Dwayne or whatever the fuck, and he's just like eating his Chinese food and he's like, Michael, and he's getting so fucking jazzed, and then Kiefer Sutherland is like doing this very kind of homoerotic, like seductive Michael, and we're getting these overlays of the images, and that was, I watched that scene twice because I was like, this is nutso. This is what the fuck is going on? Anyway.
Yeah, and you hear the name Michael like 30 times even before that point because they're like whispering it at him a bunch and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like the one reading is the drug part, and I think like, you know, the name metaphor works there too, when you're like, okay, there's the Lost Boys, the Peter Pan thing, and then there's Lost Boys, there's all these like missing children posters and stuff like that. But then there was also like, you know, you get lost to addiction and stuff like that. Like you hear about, you know, oh, the kid is homeless now, you know, out of the family and stuff like that. But the other thing is the sort of familial part of it, and I think this is the thing that is like less really shown in the movie, but like kind of occurred to me after, I guess, is like literally it's a family. It's kind of like the Manson family, you know, like it's sort of a cult type of thing where you have like the leader guy, and they're trying to you know, they're literally recruiting people. Like that's what happens to Michael. That whole thing is like, that's what cult recruitment looks like too, you know, just like literally they will get attractive women sometimes to like find young men and be like, you should come, you know, join our family, join our commune. And then, you know, you eventually find out like that the father is the one sort of leading the whole thing, and then it's like literally just trying to entrap this woman in a bad marriage. You know, if you think about like getting vampire turned into a vampire, it's sort of like now you're like really stuck in this like horrible situation, and you know, he sort of like stone face lied about it the whole time and puts on a nice face, but that was his ultimate goal. But you don't really see a lot of that stuff, you know, like that family relationship, so you kind of just have to imagine what it's like.
Yeah. Again, stuff that's not like, I feel like this film is so successful in ways, but mostly if you go, we're really picking it apart, but I feel like it's just a lot of fun, and it kind of touches on these things. And like you said, like if you're really picking it apart, you may find these little nuggets and these little hints at something greater happening. But I think like overall, it just looks good, and it's fun, and it's a bit, I mean, it's very campy, which I think allows it to kind of drop those more serious themes that it barely kind of touches on, and then it laughs at itself.
Yeah, and I think like,
which I think saves it.
I think the themes that I'm mentioning, you know, the serious adult themes, I don't think it really, you don't necessarily even have to notice or grasp that. I think it's actually, I wouldn't say subtle. I think it's maybe a little obvious, but like you can still take it all at face value and be like, this guy who got turned into a vampire, and this guy was the bad vampire, and you know, like it works just like that, and just as an action movie, you know, comedy action thing, but what I think is interesting, or at least my take on it, is I think the thematic content of it actually, I think it does that so well, or it brings enough of that even though the characters do seem kind of like a little bit thin, and I just sort of like don't buy it in a lot of ways, it all works together enough that it actually makes it like really compelling.
I feel like this movie, I keep thinking back to Poltergeist, which might seem strange, but when we rewatched that, I wasn't expecting it to have as much heart as it did. And I think that's a bit of a hallmark of 80s movies like this, where there is this heart at the core, even though it's really billed as this maybe horror movie or action adventure movie. It's still like it's feels very Spielbergian. Is that what you said earlier? There's something about that where it's like there's still a family at the center of it. There's still this sort of moral dilemma that the characters are having. Whereas I think now a lot of action, or certainly horror films, it's more about shock value. It's almost more about what can you do with effects. It's not as much about real human beings and their relationships, which this, I think, like it doesn't delve deep into, but it still is present in this film, which I think like you said, it makes it a bit more compelling than just watching a bunch of vampires running around and riding motorcycles.
Yeah, I think the relationship with the brothers, so this is, you know, shortly after Michael gets vampired. I'm
half
skipping.
Vampired.
Yeah, true. Okay. This movie, I think, makes up a lot of vampire lore. Let me just say that right now. There's like multiple things that not the biggest expert in vampires, but I am not aware of any of these rules existing elsewhere. I think they might have just made them up for the movie. But one is the half vampire thing. So I guess if you get bitten by a vampire, you're not fully a vampire. If you kill the end boss top vampire, then everyone else below gets unvampired. I think that's made up.
I've heard these things, but I think in more recent TV series and shows. So I wonder if they pulled that directly from The Lost Boys, because obviously this was very influential to like vampire
culture
shit. Yeah. So,
vampire living.
Continue.
Yeah. But that scene where Michael is kind of like going through withdrawals, basically, like that's sort of what seems to be happening. He's like, he starts vamping out, and he goes after his brother, and then like he kicks down the door, and then the dog like attacks him and stuff like that, and then it's this big exchange between him and his brother where he's like, I need help me, like what's going on here, and his brother's just like freaking out and like what does he say, like, you're gonna get in so much trouble, wait until mom hears.
Wait till mom finds out.
But that actually is like, the stakes there are kind of like real in the sense that, if you think about it, he was actually going to become a vampire. If that was happening to a family member of yours, it's almost like, oh God, like they're dying, like they have an illness or something like that. Like something, there's very serious consequences to that. But then the whole rule about you kill the main vampire, you can like undo it for everyone else. That to me was a little bit like, okay, this works. This gives you a good structure to work with, because now you've got this tension. It's really sad, but we can fix it. There is a solution to this, and we just gotta do this, and it'll be okay.
Yeah, I just to go off like what you said about the brothers. I think one of my favorite scenes was when Michael was floating out the window, and they were on the phone with their mom, and she was at work. Like, oh God, like what are you like? Stop bugging me. And then he tells her, like, you need to come home immediately. I really liked that scene. It was really funny. And again, like very heartwarming. And I guess I didn't really think about it that way when I was watching it, like about how, if you take it out of context, if you consider what this maybe is an allegory for, like, what that really means for these two boys. I think my favorite scenes are probably with Sam trying to figure out how to help his brother. He's so funny. Oh, we totally also skipped over the Edgar and Alan Frog, the little comic book vampire hunters that Sam teams up with to to kill the Lost Boys. They also don't really go into why these fucking two kids are, how they really came to understand what's going on and why they are responsible for killing the vampires.
So the kids actually remind me of It a lot. The original Stephen King book came out in 1986. So I think it's maybe just thematically kind of similar, but if you've seen either the original series or the new movie. So the theme of that movie, or the plot, is basically there's a monster killing neighborhood kids, and then these 5 or whatever kids get together and they figure out what's going on, and then they kill the monster. So it is like, it's a very similar, like, these kids understand the massive severity of this deadly situation that is affecting the entire town. That's the other thing that is very similar is a lot of kids go missing in the town in It. Like there's, faces on milk cartons and stuff like that. And it's sort of like, it's the dirty secret, no one talks about. So that beginning where it's like, this is the murder capital, and the vampire hunters are telling them, like all the stuff is going on. I actually just can just sort of substitute their knowledge of the situation with the kids from It, and just be like, they know what's up. They've seen some shit, like they're 80s movies horror book kids. So of course they'll know. Yeah,
that's true. I guess it is that thing of kids believe when grown-ups don't anymore. And so sometimes it's on these little munchkins to
you don't really out. You don't know if they have like any firsthand experience or information. Like that is left totally unexplained. they're giving Corey Haim comic books, like vampire comic books, and being like, this is real life, which begs the question, where did those comic books come from? Like, is there accurate... Is this happening everywhere and someone wrote a comic about it?
Yeah. Is it a local artist? I really like Corey Feldman's... apparently, Joel Schumacher actually told him to watch Stallone. Movies like Rambo and what's the other one? First Blood.
First Blood is Rambo. First Blood is Rambo 1. And then...
Oh, yeah. Big Rambo fan here, obviously. So he got him to watch Stallone movies to get inspired for his character. And he just like went fucking balls to the wall with it. He's so funny.
Yeah, he clearly did his homework. It's funny because like the other kid, they both kind of are putting on this like serious facade of like, we're tough guys. We know what's going on. We're experts. But he's also doing this voice that is like very much a kid doing an impression of Sylvester Stallone. But it works. Yeah. It's fun. I like it.
He's got all his headbands and...
Yeah, they're wearing like army fatigues and stuff.
Yeah, they're so cute. Okay, so Michael's becoming a vampire.
Oh yeah, the other thing about that I wanted to bring up was... There was, again, war on drugs in the 80s. There was this commercial that used to air all the time that was like a kid talking about his brother who was older than him who got addicted to drugs. And he's like, he kicked out my door in the middle of the night looking for money for drugs. And the scene where Michael kicks the door in on the bathroom and stuff like that, like it totally just like evoked that.
Oh. Yeah.
I'm going to just keep explaining this metaphor.
No. I don't know all of these references that I do like... But growing up, I was actually just talking the other day with somebody about how they showed us very graphic images of accidents to dissuade us from drinking and driving when we were younger, and took us to the hospital and through the morgue. Were you a part of this?
I mean, I definitely remember seeing a lot of... I don't remember graphic photos, but I do remember a lot of like educational stuff about drunk driving.
We spent the full day maybe this is before you moved to town, at the hospital. And we watched videos, and there were photos of like accident scenes, and somebody who had been in an accident came and talked to us, and they strapped somebody to the picker-upper thingy, that the ambulance...
The thing that gets you from the ground to the bed.
One of
those.
A
big flatboard.
Yeah, and strap somebody to that. And then at lunch, we each had to pick out of a hat and pick a disability that could happen if we were in an accident, and like they bound our hands or like covered our eyes, and they were just like, don't drink and drive. And I think I'm still traumatized from that experience. And you're right, like all of this stuff, like they were beating us over the head about this.
Yeah, this was the culture of the time. Exactly,
yeah. So it makes a lot of sense. I don't recall any of these commercials you were talking about, but I
think they were all Dare.
Oh, I was a Dare ambassador or something. I can't remember because I was a good little girl.
Can you make a picture for this one that's just the movie thing, but it's just got a Dare logo on it? Because I think that's my thesis statement about what the Lost Boys is.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. Yeah, like you said, when he's drinking the blood, and it's...
Yeah, they're chanting him into drinking the blood. I mean, they hand him a joint earlier in that scene. Right, and then there's the whole thing on the train tracks, and that's literally just like, hey, do this stupid risky thing because we're all egging you on to do it,
Yeah. It's cool.
If your friends hung off the bottom of a bridge, would you? I would.
If I could fly, I sure would. Yeah, so I don't know. I guess then Sam and Michael are like, oh, this is insane. And Michael's like freaking out, and he's like, what's happening to me? I'm like kind of see-through in my mirror. I got to go figure out what's going on. And he goes to the cave, and okay, this upset me. He finds Star, and she's like, what's wrong? And he's like, oh, I can't. What's going on? Oh, my God. And she just starts, like, smooching him. And he's like, yeah, okay. And then they go and, okay, first of all, she was literally just sitting in bed with Lottie. The cave is an open space. It's like a loft type of situation. It's like a bachelor suite. It's not like okay. They tease us with the sex. There's no actual sex. It's such an 80s, like, very short montage of, like, them kind of rubbing up on each other with their, like, bodies a little bit oiled up through some, like, lace drapery.
That part looks like a Meatloaf music video. Like, it really, like, the music starts playing and there's just, like, these zoom in shots and it's totally, like, softcore porn almost, where it's just like very implied sexuality, but like you maybe not. And I think they cut out a scene right before that where like Michael just like shoves Lottie outside and then like hangs a sock on the edge of the cave and like don't come in for 45 minutes.
It's so it was very upsetting to see that because of Lottie. But yeah, very, very 80s.
Star's motivation here is a little unclear to me.
Yeah. What is she doing? She's just horned up?
I mean, even from the beginning, I don't totally understand what her thing is. Like, did she clearly is like bringing him into this group, Like, that seems to be...
Because you have to kill someone to fully transition to a vampire. Mm-hmm. And she's like Michael, so she's not quite there. So she did say that David, Kiefer Sutherland, wanted Michael to be her first kill.
Okay, that makes some sense.
So maybe it's like a weird sexual initiation on like a three-way, four-way because Max is ultimately puppeteering this.
But then
it seems like a very complicated path to go instead of Max just like bringing a bottle of blood over for dinner.
Yeah, actually, that probably would have expedited the whole thing. If you just got to like poison someone's water.
Yeah.
Okay, but that doesn't actually make sense though, because Max wants the whole family. Like he definitely wants Michael alive and being a vampire. So why would Star?
Oh, yeah.
Star can't be her job.
But it was. Maybe David's rebelling against his papa. He's like, "Don't tell me what to do, Dad."
But I think David likes Michael. I think there definitely is like there's something there. I don't even necessarily mean like romantic, but just like I do get the impression that David wanted Michael in the group.
Maybe. Look, you found the plot hole. The one.
I did it.
So yeah, they're getting it on. Lottie's just, I don't know, kicking it. And then is this when the Lost Boys go after the guys on the beach? And they look like rabid Karens. They look nutso. Their hair is just fully blown back. They're having a feast on these surfer dudes.
Surf Nazis.
Surf Nazis.
That's what it says in the credit. And apparently in the novelization of this, remember novelizations? They expand on that. There's this big rivalry between the two groups or something.
It's so weird. I always, with stuff like this, I always think like, what was the budget for that one scene? Like all the vampire makeup. They got to get out on a beach with all these surf Nazis. Fake blood.
Corn syrup.
Billy Loomis.
This movie only had an $8.5 million budget. Wow. That's nothing.
That's pretty impressive. And it works. It's so good.
Yeah, so during that whole attack scene, they're just like wrecking these guys, and Michael is there kind of like freaking out because like he really wants to go murder a guy and drink his blood, but he doesn't want to be that guy. So he manages to resist.
Question, what do you think about Michael? Because I'm very conflicted about my feelings toward Michael.
Okay.
I think I kind of get it. I was never one to really succumb to peer pressure. So part of me is like, you fucking idiot. But part of me also feels like, oh, Michael's like, here's the thing. We're supposed to be like, Michael's a good guy. He's supposed to be one of the good guys. But he just seems like kind of a dumbass. I don't know.
He is like, he is kind of devoid of any substance or personality other than just sort of like whatever natural charisma he has. I think you're meant to be sympathetic for him. Despite that, I think he's just meant to be like, he's the older brother. He doesn't really do, he's fighting, he's trying not to be a bad guy, to be a vampire, like that is his kind of struggle throughout the movie, is like he makes a mistake and then he's dealing with the consequences of it. And you're supposed to be rooting for him.
Are you rooting for him?
Yeah.
Are you, Jason, rooting for Michael?
Yeah, totally. Why wouldn't I? It's I don't know. You don't want to see like, if he becomes a full vampire, like then the family is kind of destroyed. His relationship with his brother is shot. Is it though? Because he can still hang out with his brother, can't he? I guess. I don't know. I don't know what the rules are around that. Maybe there's
not in the sunshine. I don't know.
It's like maybe
not in a church.
Yeah, they just have to like accommodate for it. Only have dinners.
By the way, maybe my favorite scene in the entire movie is when they're in the church for like maybe 15 seconds when the little vampire hunters are filling their water bottles up or their little whatever they've got canisters up with holy water, and there's like a baptism going on, a christening. So good. And nobody even says anything. They just kind of like look at them and patiently wait, and then they leave and they're like kids. Yeah. Okay, I got distracted again. What's happening? So okay, yeah, the cave. They go to the cave. They get the vampire kids and Michael and everyone together to start killing these vampires. And they're hanging upside down. This is what I mostly remember. This is the image that I have in my head that, like, before I rewatched this one again, was them hanging upside down. I think that's a pretty iconic image. I think it's supposed to be a bit of a like check it out, these guys are upside down. Their mullets are just like trailing beneath them. Yeah, the hair was really on point there. I did not remember so much goo in this movie because they stab Marco, poor Alex Winters, whatever. People will know who I'm talking about. And there's so much goo. The 80s really went full on with the goo, hey? Maybe it has something to do with like corn syrup subsidies. Like you can, if you follow politics enough, you'll see why. And they just had an abundance of it. So they're like, well, goo is cheap. We can do goo. Computers, those are really expensive at this point in time. Goo, very affordable. If anybody out there knows anything about the corn syrup, it's all about landscape in the 1980s, please email us, expostwacho@gmail.com. So that scene is like kind of the most, I guess, well, certainly up to this point, you do see it later on, but like the most vampire we really see. Like up until then, I mean, I guess you did see at the biker scene, they were vampires, but it was dark and they're kind of just like, you see their faces there. But like now you're actually seeing them hang upside down and like really look with all their like weird feet. Weird. And, yeah. Oh, no, didn't like that. I can handle the faces, not the fucked up feet. The faces reminded me of the TV show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and apparently this movie influenced that. Yeah, that was pretty clear. I haven't seen much Buffy, but what I've seen, I know what the vampire... Yeah, no. I know what the vampires look like, and then when I saw these, I was almost like, oh man, they just did the Buffy vampires, but then I did the math, and I realized it was the other way around. Because, yeah, it's like identical. Yeah. In my memory, at least. Yeah. It's very, very similar, except for the feet. I don't remember that from Buffy. So something that I didn't really catch the first time the scene happened. Well, okay, so first they kill Alex Winter, and they're like, they sort of have this thing where they're like, we got to kill the main vampire. And they're like, which one is it? And they're like, we don't know. So they're like, well, let's just start with this guy. It's like, wouldn't you start with like the biggest guy or the oldest looking guy? Like literally he's the youngest looking guy. Yeah. And then it kind of like all goes to shit from there. So I think that was a poor decision on their part. I don't think these kids are as professional as maybe they think they are. Yeah, you know what? come to think of it, they probably deserved everything that happened as a consequence to this decision that they made. You're right. These fucking idiots.
These idiot children.
Yeah.
But something else. Kiefer Sutherland is like, you know, they all wake up and they start freaking out, and he's like going after them and kind of like chasing them out and trying to grab one of them. But then his hand reaches into the sun, and it's like a bright sunny day, so it like starts burning, and he like recoils it. But he sheds a single tear. Like when they get away, he's like, ah, and then he kind of like smiles a little bit, but also a tear is shed. And that was like a surprising, I don't know. I read a lot into that, and I'm like, I kind of think he's really sad to be a vampire.
Okay, so I don't want to burst your bubble here, but I read that it was because of the contact lenses, because they didn't have soft contact lenses. They were hard, right?
What?
And so you're not getting oxygen to your eyes, and that's why the tear was shed, because of the contact lens, and his eye was reacting to it. Because I also really was like, in that moment, I was like, oh, this is an interesting choice. Like, this kind of hit me. But I guess his eye was it was a reaction to the contact lens.
Oh, shit.
That just happened to work in their favor. I think it still works, but...
Yeah, see, now, how does that work with Death of the Author when it's, like, not the written intent, but just, like, a weird production mistake creates a thing in a movie? But, like, I really like that because at the end, when he dies, maybe, again, I was just reading too much into it, but, like... as he's dying, he kind of like starts to have this look on his face of like relief, you know, like he's like, oh fuck, thank God it's over. And then after he's dead, and I'm kind of jumped to the end a little bit, but like, and the dad comes in to seize him, you know, his face is back to being like human looking. I mean, I guess he could change it at will, but so like I kind of connected those two dots and like read into my broader theme of like all the bad things this represents and like the sadness within him, even if he's like recruiting people into his drug, sex, abuse cult. You know, he's also like miserable at the same time.
The abused becomes the abuser. A common theme.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I did pick up on that also when he died, that he seemed particularly relieved. And I was like, I wonder what that's about. If that was intentional, if that was a really careful choice that he made, or was the camera just on him when he was kind of just bullshitting with somebody off camera?
Yeah, apparently things in this movie just happen because of chance. It's all willy-nilly. Saxophone guy, okay? He wasn't even supposed to be there that day. He just showed up, and they're like, let's put him in the movie, you know?
He has a name, Jason. And
I can't remember
Tim or Timmy Capello. I'll never forget that name. All right. So they go to the house. The kids are at the house. They're like, let's fucking do it. This is the showdown.
The big action scene, which was pretty good.
This scene,
I liked it.
This scene was like fucking intense. There was, first of all, I don't know why they didn't just bust through the door. Like, the house is made of wood. There are windows, glass windows, but they fucking fly through the fireplace, down the chimney and out through the fireplace. Like they're, well, kind of like Lost Boys, I guess. Like fucking Mary Poppins or something.
I think they did it because it's cool and it looked badass.
Everybody's dying. The vampires are all dying. It was kind of funny how they said like all of them die differently. They all go differently, which kind of almost gave them an excuse to have very strange things happen to each one of them. My favorite death was, wait, what did they say about this guy? We trashed the one that looked like Twisted Sister.
That didn't narrow it down. I was like, which one is that?
The blonde. The one that's not Marco. Because he's going after them in the bathroom. And he's like, garlic won't work, guys. And they throw him in the bathtub full of holy water.
Yeah. But like, Kiefer Sutherland could be the guy from Twisted Sister. Like, he's got some real hair rock.
But he did not have quite the... His mullet was nothing compared to Dwayne? Gary?
There's a Dwayne in this movie.
I don't know what their names are. The guy with the dark hair, I don't think said one. The guy with the same hair as me, he didn't say one thing, I think, until the very end when he was like, You're gonna get it, rascals. So Twisted Sister dies. This was my favorite, well, not my favorite part of the movie, but I don't remember this at all. His skin gets all burned off in the holy water, and somehow the pipes all react, and blood starts flying out of all of the pipes, the sinks, the drains. It starts like sloshing down from the ceilings, actually, at one point. It was almost like the house itself was bleeding. That was so I did not remember that. I was not expecting that. Yeah, that was kind of, I thought it looked cool.
It definitely looked cool. It was not, it's something from, I don't know, it seems like a ghost movie thing rather than a vampire movie thing. Like that seems like something you would see in Poltergeist. Or like The Exorcist, maybe. Yeah, that was cool. I like how they threw him in the bathtub and he got out, and then the dog came and just jumped right into him and knocked him in, and then he melted.
Fucking dog saves the day, of course.
Hey, we got a villain dog in this, though, which, you know, I appreciate a little honesty in movies. That dogs, not every dog is your friend.
I would argue that other dog was not a villain. That other dog was loyal as shit to its owner, and it was protecting his owner. So I would say that dog is still a beautiful, perfect, good boy.
I mean, that dog, animal control will be called on that dog at some point. Just taking down some neighborhood kid because it walked to the wrong house.
Also, you mentioned The Exorcist. Jason Patric is like the son of one of the guys in The Exorcist or something. Great piece of trivia that is extremely vague and unclear. There you go. Yeah, and then dark-haired guy, Gary or Dwayne or Steve, he is electrocuted? He's electrocuted, right?
Yeah, he gets shot into a TV. Well, and then some Aerosmith starts playing.
Death.
Yeah.
Right. Do you think someone's going to die in a television in Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula?
I sure hope so. Some guy's like, I invented it, the first TV, and then throws it on Dracula's head. Wait a minute, something just occurred to me that doesn't make sense. So at the beginning of the movie, Sam is like, he's like, there's no TV, that means no MTV. And then Grandpa is like, he gets the TV guide, and he doesn't watch TV, which is kind of like, I can sort of totally understand that. And then, but then at the end, there's this TV. Where did the TV come from?
Was it a TV?
I thought it was. Oh, you know what?
100% a TV. Maybe it was a stereo.
It might have been a stereo. I think you're right. I think I retconned it into a TV. Yeah, because when he gets hit, it starts playing like Aerosmith really loud. Like it's a real rock and roll death. Because it's
rock and roll vamps.
Rock and roll vampires.
A rock and roll death for a rock and roll vampire.
Okay,
baby.
So I think rock and roll vampires is a good description of this movie. Although I would maybe change it to be like synth ballad vampires with a little bit of rock.
Yeah, like I don't know. It was a very like In Excess is on the soundtrack, and those were kind of the vibes. But there's some Billy Idol influence, I think, there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Billy Idol's not really rock and roll, but he's got the rock and roll.
Billy
attitude.
Idol is absolutely rock and roll.
His music, I would say, is like pop music.
I mean,
but his attitude is very rock and roll.
Rock and roll is an incredibly like vague term that describes so many different things. But like, I would say Billy Idol in the 80s, Rebel Yell, that is a rock song. It's an 80s like pop rock song. It's a genre of rock, but it is most definitely rock.
Let's settle on pop rock.
80s pop rock vampires.
I fucking love it. I love Billy Idol.
But like the movie like looks like a music video at multiple times. Like it is clearly like filmed that same way. So it all definitely falls into that.
I love it. You know what? Now talking about the blood coming out of the taps and stuff, it feels like Kiefer Sutherland's, like David's death is very like sort of unceremonious. It's just like he gets stabbed, but he also doesn't get stabbed by a wooden stake. He gets stabbed by horns. So there is some speculation that, or not even speculation, but apparently there was supposed to be a sequel to this called The Lost Girls, and that he was supposed to return in that.
Yeah. I read that as well, and that makes a lot of sense because I think that was my takeaway when I watched it was like, boy, his death is kind of anticlimactic. Like, it really seems for that character, the manner of the death itself. Like, okay, so they Michael and David get into an anime like flying battle in the air where they're like and they did just the right amount of that, by the way. Like, that could have gone on too long, but like I think for this movie, like the amount of flying and stuff like that they did was perfect. It was not too much. And then he basically like pushes him into like a mounted, deer's head or whatever, and it stabs him and he dies. And then that's about it. But it makes sense that if the intention was to do a sequel, you would, make it so that it was something that didn't kill him. But I think like it's too bad, because I think that could have been a little bit better, maybe had they committed to this just being one movie.
I'm also now realizing that I guess Grandpa's taxidermy did go someplace.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't want to like say like this is a really, really, really masterful movie, but it's better than the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, oh, actually, that kind of works. Except for Star. I feel like if that part of the story didn't exist, and I know that like the original script, she was supposed to be a boy, right? So I don't know that they would have like had a gay love story in the 80s in a major motion picture. So I think that part of the story falls a little flat. As much as I like Jamie Gertz, I just don't think and even Lottie, little baby vamp Lottie, which was like also like, whoa, what the fuck is going on at the very end? Like they don't really need to be there. I mean, I guess it was for the sexy times and stuff, but it just felt like, get out of here.
I think I disagree a little bit. I do think that Lottie and Star, like Lottie is definitely the least explained character in the movie. I'm not sure, is she just like another kid? Is she someone's brother or sister? Like early on, I got the impression it was one of their younger siblings or something like that. I think Star definitely does make sense beyond just like the sex appeal. From a plot perspective of like, sure, there are other ways you can get Michael to end up in this vampire situation he's in. But I think the one they went with was like, he's a dumb, horny teenager who follows a girl and gets into trouble. And I think that like is perfectly legitimate. Where it doesn't make sense is when you look at it from her character's perspective and it's not clear. You're left to kind of guess a lot as to like how she ended up in that situation, or what was going through her head with Michael. Like, maybe she did just like have a crush on this guy and she just kind of wanted to be around him, and like, oops, I accidentally drug you into this too. There is that moment toward the end where like the kids are all gung-ho as soon as they hear anyone, the vampire hunter kids, as soon as they hear that anyone's a vampire, they're like, we got to kill them right now. Like, we have to stab them. And, and including Michael. But then, the kid turns into a vampire at the end and is like vamping out, and that was actually like really sad. Like, that was a very sad thing.
Yeah.
I didn't see the kid as like a threat. It was just like tragic that had happened.
It had very like let the right one in vibes or something. Do you know that?
I don't know that reference.
Oh, Jason. Well, we may have to do that one. It's also a book and it's very good.
Okay.
Maybe one of the best vampire movies ever made. One of the better movies, some people would argue. It's so good. The original. There's like an American one and then like, I don't know, I think it's a Swedish one. They do dark, awful things very well there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can imagine. I've heard that title before, but I always thought that was something like The Notebook.
Yeah. Oh, fuck. No.
No? Okay.
It's like it's okay. I won't even get into it. We'll just do it one day.
Okay.
We'll have to do that one day. Yeah, it was very sad. And they call him Eddie Munster, which kind of made me laugh. But it was a sad moment. And what happens to Star and Lottie at the end? Are they still in the house when Grandpa comes in and is like, oh, these damn vampires?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure after Mac shows up, spills his plan like a James Bond villain, and then dies, I'm pretty sure we do see everyone like unvampired.
Oh, right. Yes, because they were like, I feel different. It worked.
Well, at first they were like, I don't feel different. Why didn't it work when they kill Kiefer Sutherland?
Yeah. I think that was kind of fun. Like, I think that the relationship between Max and the Lost Boys was unclear, but I still liked the reveal, and I liked how that all played out at the end. And lunatic grandpa coming through it was funny. It was fun. I like the grandpa.
The last 2 minutes of the movie are pretty funny. It might be the best kind of cut to credits. Because, like, yeah, Grandpa just busts through the house with his bulldozer of steaks and kills Max. And then he comes inside and, I don't know, some stuff happens. But it ends with him at the fridge and he cracks open a root beer and he's like, out
of his old fart drawer.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and then he says, what does he say? This sounds good, but too many vampires.
Yeah, the one thing I don't like is too many damn vampires.
Yeah, and then it just smashed to the credits and it starts playing People Are Strange again. And I actually went, what? when I saw that.
Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed that ending. I thought it, like you said, it was sort of just right. There was stuff that I thought I wanted more of, but there was nothing in this that was too much for me. If that makes sense.
Like, you could have done a thing at that point where, like, Max gets killed and then the family like reconciles and talks it over and stuff like that. And I think that would have been really maybe a little weird, just with the lack of, I mean, they do kind of allude to the characters really, like the mom does have kind of the talk with Michael of like, what's going on? You're staying out late. You're, are we still friends? Stuff like that. That actually, again, that is like your kid is going through changes / maybe addicted to heroin, and you got to have a hard conversation with them. But yeah, that was just sort of a funny wrap-up line. Okay, I need to say something about that song, People Are Strange. I sent you this earlier. This really has nothing to do with the movie, but this is my platform and I need people to know about this. The actor Edward Furlong, who is famous from Terminator 2 and American History X, in the early 90s recorded an album of covers, and I think it was released only in Japan. And one of those songs is People Are Strange by The Doors, which shows up twice in this movie. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually edit that version of the song in at the end instead of the version they have, which is also a cover. And then I'm just going to re-release that one on BitTorrent and see if anyone notices. But anyway, the important takeaway is whatever you're doing right now, after the show is over, you need to go to YouTube. You need to look up Edward Furlong, People Are Strange, and I guarantee you'll have a much better day for it.
Thank you for that. And I think that we should end this show immediately. Also, I think we've been talking for like an hour and a half about this movie. Something like that. Something very long, but lots to talk about. I feel like I could continue talking about this, but I think we should put a cap on it. Jason, I'm assuming you recommend this to people who have not seen it or who maybe haven't seen it for a while.
Yeah, definitely. This is definitely part of the 80s canon. It was a little weird watching it, having seen all of the recycled culture that we have today that just kind of remakes these things over and over again, and like immediately recognizing that this is one of the things that they are doing a copy of. I think you could release this movie today and it would totally work as like one of those movies, other than, obvious things that make it a bit dated. But I really enjoyed it. I didn't quite know what to expect when I was going into it. I wasn't expecting what it was, but I did enjoy it. Yeah, I'd give it like 8.5 out of 10.
8.5 out of 10. You know what? I also give it 8.5 out of 10. 8.5 Jason Patric luscious locks out of 10. I think that this movie's really... I spent a lot of time talking about there's not enough of certain things, but I actually do think it's a really well-balanced movie. It's so fun. This is one of my favorite 80s movies just because it's so 80s and it's campy. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's self-aware, but it's not trying. That's not the point of the movie. That's not what the movie is focused on. Like it's still a proper story. And like I said, I'm not like a big nerd. I don't really engage in a lot of that nerd culture kind of stuff. It's just not that interesting to me, but I think my nerd thing is vampires, and this is definitely many thumbs up, many mullets down for this one.
Mullets,
go watch it.
Mullets down? Mullets hanging upside down?
Mullets hanging upside down. Many mullets hanging upside down. That's my that's my new spin-off podcast that's just focuses on Tim Capello.
Tim Capello fan fiction.
So yeah, you have things to do. Anyone listening, you have to go listen to the Edward Furlong version of People Are Strange, and you have to go find out as much as you can and experience as much of Tim Capello as you possibly can, including the John Hamm SNL spoof, Sergio. And with that, I think we will leave you. Make sure that you write to us at xpostwatcho@gmail.com about the corn syrup industry. Also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at xpostwatcho. If you enjoy this, if you've been listening, a review is great, especially if it's a great review. Am I missing anything, Jason?
We have a YouTube channel now. It's just the episodes of the show, but we're putting them on YouTube just because I know some people like to watch things on there. So if you do that, you know what? Just go to the channel, hit play, and just walk away. But just let the videos play so we can use the metrics. Thank you.
Help us out because we're having fun. We want to keep doing this. We probably still will anyway for our, 3 listeners. Next week, we finito our Halloween spooky series.
I should have brought an organ to play.
Oh, yeah. I know a guy. What are we watching next week?
Dracula. Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula. Starring Keanu Reeves.
Yeah. 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 So come back and watch it and then come back. Come back, then watch it, then come back again.
Write this down.
Okay.